Hi there, welcome to the Fierce Factor podcast. I'm your host, Kaylee Lindholm. And I think it's time for us women to shift the conversation in business and step into our feminine leadership to do the most iconic work the aesthetic industry has ever seen. Each week, I'll be bringing a powerful dose of strategy, sarcasm, solutions, and sass that will rev up your creativity and ignite your brilliance as you link arms with me along our shared path of personal and professional growth in 20 minutes or less. Let's go. Hello, leader. Welcome back to the Fierce Factor podcast. It's your host, Kaylee, here with my voice back. Yay. And you are tuning in to part 4 of our Thought Leader series with episode number 198. And today we're going to explore a self-reflection of who you are as a leader of your business and team, and how that impacts your aspirations as a thought leader. I chose this topic for today to speak to the deeper depths of thought leadership for female entrepreneurs, because what I found is that thought leadership often, it sounds sexy, it looks attractive on social media, and it can be quite fulfilling to the ego and to the bank account. And honestly, being a thought leader allows the creation of tremendous impact in the world. But there's also a responsibility that comes with elevating yourself into a thought leadership role. And like Dolly Parton so truthfully stated, it's impossible to experience the rainbow without the rain. Thought leaders are self-informed opinion leaders and looked up to in their field of expertise. They become the trusted sources who move and inspire others with innovative, provocative ideas. They have the skilled ability to translate visionary ideas into lived reality. And they're so competent and confident that they know how to and are also not threatened by helping others replicate their success. So here's the main idea. Thought leadership isn't about thoughts. It's about having someone to lead, guide, and influence. And while an obvious part of developing our thought leadership is seeking new stages to stand on, let's not neglect the very system that allowed us the freedom to explore and expand in the first place. And that means, as it relates to the work that we do at KLC, tethering a line to your beautiful business and team. I routinely speak with women who are recognized for their exceptional skill and, therefore called to be industry speakers and trainers, and some are simply in demand to teach their own proprietary method across the country, which is so cool. So they might start as a KOL for an injectable or device company, for example, and then be asked to speak and present on stage, all incredible opportunities to grow their visibility and the brand behind their business. Then they may start their own training academy and offer courses or shadow days, and then begin to travel around the country, bringing their expertise to teams and audiences on the road. Does this sound familiar? Slowly, the days they carved out to spend working on their business or investing in their team development or with their families, the things at the top of the priority list, get filled by new training opportunities, and therefore, their time becomes splintered, and guess who gets the short end of the stick? Their team, who's back holding up the business. And this can actually be amazing if they have built a self-led company, a management team, and systems that their managers can operate independently. But rarely is that the case. More often than not, I find business owners leaving their team to pursue their ambitions of thought leadership and visionary growth without focusing first on throttling back to scale up. And more importantly, having a meaningful conversation with their team about WIFT, what's in it for them. Now, I'm not saying you can't work on your thought leadership if you don't have a well-oiled machine of a business that runs on autopilot, not at all. But what I am saying is that if you don't have a plan to intentionally navigate your thought leadership aspirations with your team and build a plan for how that goal will fold into your business, you are setting yourself up for potentially fatal landmines. So today, my goal is not to steer you away from pursuing your dream. Obviously, it's instead to call you to rise up and see the bigger picture in pursuit of that dream. I'm going to share with you 5 ways that your expertly cultivated strengths may also be your biggest barrier to achieving the message clarity, communication excellence, and sustainable speaking or credentialing opportunities that you so deeply desire. And my hope is that by recognizing these often overlooked missteps, you can devise a plan that supports both your quest for evolving as a thought leader and the engagement, buy-in, and support of your employees. So landmine number 1 is what I call the polarity of visibility. As a high growth leader, expanding your reach and brand visibility is such an honorable and worthy goal. But like I mentioned, garnering the encouragement of your team is critical. And in order to do this, you have to be visible for your team, because the focus of building your own platform through the thought leadership journey can inadvertently splinter your own ambition and that of the business. And if I'm honest, leading team through this is usually very poorly executed. So how do we stay visible to expand our presence, our network, and opportunities, but also be highly visibly engaged with our team? Spoiler alert, this comes back to communication, helping them understand how our time away from the practice will benefit the business, how it will drive awareness and brand recognition for them, and ultimately elevate them under your wing as collaborators of the ecosystem that you're building. And if you truly feel in your heart of hearts that your why is to serve and make an impact, share that with them. Help them buy into this idea and rally behind you. When you communicate up front, you'll inspire them to step up in your business in your absence versus recoil and feel unappreciated. The second landmine that I witness is what is called the expert trap. I love this term coined by the brilliant Carol Cox, who helped me develop my signature talk. She said, you know those breakout rooms at conferences, the ones where you speak on a specific topic? I was like, yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about. Hand right up. And she said, the goal is not to stay an expert for too long. And I was like, what are you talking about? She said, what will happen is you'll get known for something so specific that you'll find a hard time being elevated to the main stage. You'll be trapped as the expert. And I see this happen with women in our industry who are trainers for other companies. They become affiliated with that company and become known as someone who is a spokesperson for them. So I'll hear things behind the scenes like, well, I don't actually do it that way, but I have to teach it that way because I have to mind the clinical guidelines of the company. I recently had an injector client who's in very high demand for her own proprietary method that she feels like her hands are tied and she can't really dive deep during her industry trainings in the way she knows she can. And she actually feels bad after them. How insane is that? And I think this is okay. I'm not putting down that, look, there's regulatory issues, when you're training for a company on their products. And I do think that there are really basic standards that injectors need to understand before they could maybe really dial into the advanced techniques that you are personally implementing in your practice. I understand that. But if you're spending your time, let's say, having your hands tied or feeling frustrated or feeling bad after you are training for a company, think about that, right? Think about if that makes sense for you. Think of the thought leader you respect most in the industry. Are they an expert or are they an innovator? On the other fold of the expert trap are women who pigeonhole themselves into being the expert, the only one who can do it like them in their business. They'll say things like, my patients all come to me because they don't trust my other providers. They trust me. Then I'll look at their system for converting patients to new providers, and there's essentially zero actual effort or any operational process that's been rolled out to the team. They feel bad that their patients might think that, they're too good for them or they don't care about them if they elegantly hand them off to another provider. And, patients might get mad or leave. And so we just keep doing it the way it's always been done. If you want to expand your thought leadership, you have to embrace a key trait of a thought leader. You have to become so competent and confident that you're the guru at teaching others, and you will pour into and empower others to evolve into their own kind of expert. So be the kind of leader who has an army of experts who you mentored and developed. Now that's the real flex. And not to mention, that's something to talk about on a big stage. Landmine number 3 is you're outgrowing your team or vice versa. Inevitably, women we work with who approach thought leader status, women who have developed a promotable asset like their business model, their methodology, their training or consultation protocols, essentially a learning that is highly sought after. Well, to get to this level, they've grown a lot because going through this grind and putting yourself out there, it isn't super comfortable. Not only does it take some serious ovaries to independently create IP, it's super vulnerable. And you don't have someone else's expertise, approval, or attaboys to lean on. You're a trailblazer. Not to mention you're under a microscope. There are way more people who want to pick and prod at you and pick apart every idea you have and judge you than support you. It's just reality. As some people will say, it's lonely at the top. Now, I'll say it's not lonely if you immerse yourself with others that are like you, but you get the point. I'll give a personal example. This week, I posted about our upcoming It Factor Bootcamp on LinkedIn. I very thoughtfully chose an image of myself that created a symbolic experience about a strong woman in a power suit who was barefoot with a bralette under her coat. It's all over our marketing if you haven't seen it. Anyway, that was a very out of my typical comfort zone photo shoot. And I felt really confident and empowered seeing myself in that way. You know, having come from a 15-year run up the ladder in corporate America where I stumbled across closed-minded business ideals where smart, successful women had to look, act, and interact in a certain way. Women with femininity were judged for their attractiveness and assumed that they were flaunting themselves for attention. Well, go figure, of all people, a woman on LinkedIn made a public comment shaming me for demeaning women with brains, okay? Essentially stating that the only way I know how to get business is by prancing around in my bare feet and bra. I had a good laugh with my team, but seriously, I'm so done with women masquerading as female empowering while shaming the women who are actually pushing limits, upending the status quo, and taking provocative action to change the perception of bright, intelligent women in our society. Like I said, stepping into the spotlight is not comfortable. And that, by the way, is why getting coached through this process is not a nice to have, it's critical. But the point is, as an emerging thought leader, you're not only leading your team and business to new heights, but you are also pushing yourself to new levels day in and day out. If you don't have team members who are willing and able to push themselves to grow in alignment with you and the vision of the business, then they're not going to be able to hang. And they just might make it look like it's your fault, by the way. And as you expand to 20 or 30 or 50 employees, well, the odds that you'll have someone who stagnates, those odds will grow. And if you're doing the steps to build the system, hire the right management team who can lead operations, and you're communicating the vision, this will be something you can expect but not enjoy. But it is part of the process of growth. On the flip side, if you're checked out, not putting the work in to develop your people and build an ecosystem where they and your clients can thrive without you there every minute, you might see the reverse of this, where you're advancing to elevate and your people, well, they're just disengaging. This is why siloing your business growth and your thought leadership is not a good idea. They are partners. They are two sides of one coin. And of course, we can help you navigate these parallel paths when the timing is right for you. Potential landmine number 4 is you are preaching to a party of one. So this idea comes back to the delivery of your message. One thing I'll see when I work with thought leader development is the passionate desire to change the way things are done. And look, you know that's my love language, right? But sometimes we can get so staunchly bought into our own belief system that we forget to consider outside perspectives. And I'm gonna just be real here. This is me. Like, this has been me, and this is something I've had to work on. I was recently having a conversation about this with my husband, who's super passionate about youth sports and the overtraining of young kids at such a young age. We're seeing more and more 7 and 8-year-old kids burning out their arms from overthrowing, and more travel sports teams requiring kids to play one sport year round to quote unquote compete. So my husband's the manager of my son's travel baseball team, and he was interviewing parents, of course, to make sure that they had a philosophy that's in alignment with, the teams. And he was using language that implied the way it's done is wrong, and parents who are all about winning are crazy. And I get it. And personally, as a former college athlete, I wholeheartedly agree with him in that regard. But the approach to cut down everyone else with a differing perspective is not going to create an environment where these other parents are going to be more likely to want to follow his lead. Instead, they're just going to shut down immediately. This is what I consider preaching to a party of one. If you don't polish up your ability to help others see your perspective and consider it for themselves, by the way, because it's their own idea, which is a ninja tactic, right? You will fail before you even get to play the game. And this goes for thought leadership in all regards. If you're trying to get your team to buy into your vision at the highest level, you have to meet them where they are. Stop trying to change hearts and minds. Instead, be an example of what's possible for them. Thought leadership is about demonstrating leadership, not just about talking about it. And finally, landmine number 5 is the I can't say no syndrome. And if you know, if you have this, right? You're in high demand and you can't say no to all these opportunities coming your way because you fear that turning down these opportunities for, to make more money, to get your name out there, right? I've worked so hard to get these opportunities. Why in the world would I say no to them? And you feel like if you do, it will result in a lack of visibility or a lack of influence or missed revenue. But the reality is this leads to burnout and a lack of you showing up with your most dynamic presence. It is counterintuitive, leader. Remember that everything about your thought leadership leads back to your own visibility, how you show up, how you communicate that message to the world. So being overstretched so thin is not a really great look. And I will sort of caveat with this as well, that I have found that being in demand and not always so available actually creates an environment where you are more rare and you are actually put yourself in position to be paid more. So anyway, we can talk about that more. If you want to work with us and learn about how to negotiate your fees and how to show up as your best freaking self, I would love the opportunity to help you with that. Okay, leader, I hope this podcast has been helpful and you're enjoying our series on developing your thought leadership. If you are interested in working with us to help you make some big moves this year, personally and professionally, you can actually head down and click the link in the show notes to schedule a no-pressure discovery call with our team, or head to our website at klcconsultants.com and hit the Connect with Us tab. All right, that's all for today. I will chat with you, same place, same time next week. Cheers. Listen, leader, if you're vibing with me here, hang tight because I have a brand new resource for you. You are a successful, confident, powerful woman who just isn't into being average. No, you have a calling, and part of that calling is requiring you to level up. And I know that if you're working across the next $1 million milestone in your business, you need to be in the right circles. And perhaps that's why you found us. I'd love to invite you to join The Blueprint, a weekly resource for inspired, provocative thinkers who are taking this conversation to the next level. Get access to free business tools, podcast supplements, guideposts, and direct communication with me and my expert team. And of course, a masterfully curated circle of women making big moves and disrupting the status quo in aesthetics and wellness. You can link directly through the show notes or head to klcconsultants.com/blueprint. It's time to elevate. See you there, goddess.